Hey guys, welcome to the History of FMW. This is going to be episode 11, where we're going to cover the first half of 1994 up until the end of May. Now, on a previous show, we had talked about Leatherface had disappeared from a lot of the wing cards for a short time, and it turned out it was because he went to jail. And you said that you had learned some new stuff about that.
Yeah, I found out what happened with him. What happened was he was in either Roppongi or Shinjuku, and you haven't just been to Japan, you might know very well about this. There's a lot of African Nigerians around the area and stuff when you're going to the bars and to the nightlife and everything in that area. And so he was out one night with Mike Levansky, and they were just roaming around, the area and stuff around 4 a.m. And some Nigerians came up to them, and they're trying to get them into their club or something like that. And then, they're drunk. Kirshner and Lazansky are drunk, and they're saying "F you" and all that. And then the Nigerians start talking about their women that they were with and stuff like that. And then pretty much just get into this yelling fight, and then Kirshner ends up punching one of them in the face just to shut him up and breaks his jaw, and it ends up getting reported to the police, and the police come and arrest him, and he spent 3 months in jail in Japan, and there's no bed, there's nothing, you just sit there and you're not allowed to talk. And he said it was hell for 3 months. So it was one of those things where he just really regretted being out, and ended up making a huge mistake one night.
I can relate with that so much. There was one night, for those who don't know, these guys, they stand on the corners, and if they see you, they will grab your arm. They're offering you drugs. They're offering you women. And one time I flipped on one of the guys, and I said, "Leave me alone. I don't want your wares," blah, blah. And he called his friends over, and I had 6 of them following me. So I can see how a big wrestler wouldn't want to put up with that shit. That's very understandable. Going back to the timeline, just to go back 1 month, at the end of 1993, ECW would hold an Explosion Deathmatch. Now, no tapes have ever been made available of this, and there's a couple clips online of some of the people involved laughing about how bad it was, and apparently it was a big embarrassment. Do you know what this match actually was, as I've never seen it, and I've never heard any great detail about it?
Yeah, I couldn't really find too much information about it. All I really was able to find out was that it pretty much was kind of like they had flares going around the ring, which were no big deal. Like, AAA would do that for each match and stuff. And over the PA system did like a loud explosion. So it really was nothing. So, and you had fans wanting a refund and everything like that, because it was just total bait and switch. They just completely lied to promote something when it was nothing like what they were kind of making it out to be.
Yeah, the famous one is actually Joey Styles. Just he's laughing so much he can't even get through the story of it, and that's what I mostly know it for. Going into 1994, the company War, which is run by Genricho Tenryu, they're going to play a big deal in 1994. Before we go too much farther, can you just refresh us as to what was War and what was the company's business like going into 1994?
Pretty much, Tenryu was a main guy in All Japan for years and years and years, one of the headliners, and he got a deal with a sponsor to leave All Japan and start up the SWS promotion. And it was supposed to kind of rival New Japan and All Japan and everything. And Tenryu was supposed to be the main guy and, the ace and whatnot. And it was a total flop, lost a lot of money. Even they worked with WWF at the time, still just a total flop. Ended up dying out in about a year or two. And Tenryu ended up starting a new promotion called War. And they didn't have much backing or anything, but they were still able to run shows like Sumo Hall and everything. SWF was able to run Tokyo Dome, so that's just kind of it's a smaller promotion, but it was better run, and Tenryu was still obviously the ace. He was the boss. He was the promoter and everything. It was just kind of a second try at his promoting and his booking and everything. So, and it was a successful promotion for the most part. It actually was probably at FMW's level, maybe even a little less, because they weren't running 50,000 seat stadiums like FMW would, but their house shows and Corrigan Hall shows at the time were doing pretty well.
Cool. And so at the beginning of 1994, FMW and War, they agreed to a partnership of some sort. What led to the two companies making this agreement, and what were the goals of it?
They wanted just, Tenryu was a draw and Onita was a draw, and they, wanted to do kind of the interpromotional dream matches that would help sell out some shows. And War had a Sumo Hall show in March, and FMW had a Kawasaki Stadium show in May, and so they wanted to just, you work for me and I'll work for you, and we'll both help each other out.
Cool. Now, at the end of the last year, a big name was actually Matsunaga, but he's off of most of these tours as he is out with a knee. He is out with a knee injury. Where did this injury happen, and how severe was it?
It took him out for a couple months. It was mostly, just from the year plus 2 years in wing, just, diving off balconies and everything. He had messed it up, and it was kind of the final breach pretty much with at the show against Onita. He messed it up again, and he had to take time off at that point. So he was already kind of struggling, but he had to get through the Onita match, because that was a big payday and everything. And after that, he needed some time off after kind of messing it up again.
All right. Now, FMW, they opened on January 5th and 6th. They had two back-to-back sold-out shows at Kuroken Hall. One company I just want to mention briefly is going to be Michinoku Pro. This is one of the companies that FMW has. They've kept their relationship going with them, and it seems to be on good terms. They're bringing in Sasuke, Super Delphin, Jinsei, Shinzaki. What is the relationship like with the two companies?
Yeah, they're close. Sasuke and Onita, they're friends, and they're pretty close, and business partners and everything. And so whenever they need each other, the company was willing to help. So Michinoku Pro would bring in Onita and Pogo and kind of have like a mixed, or have a tag match where it's Pogo and Shinzaki versus Sasuke and Onita, to help one of their shows. And then the Michinoku Pro guys would come in and wrestle mid-card matches for FMW to kind of help out the work rate, because a lot of the workers aren't the best with FMW. So kind of, and it added a different style, because there's a women's match, there's a hardcore style, there's a kickboxing match, and then you add in kind of a lucha libre match. So it just kind of helps out, round out the card of every match kind of being different.
The owner of AAA, Antonio Pena, they appeared on this show, and they shot some sort of angle during the Michinoku Pro six-man match. What happened with this angle, and what is the relationship between FMW and AAA?
Yeah, so Antonio Pena and a couple of the AAA guys came to Japan in January '94, and they kind of wanted to see who they could help, form a working relationship with. So they went to New Japan earlier in the week, and they also met with All Japan Women. And so when they met up with FMW, they set up an angle where Antonio Pena and I believe Fereza Guerrera, they're sitting in the front row, and Sasuke ends up doing a Asai moonsault into the crowd and lands on the AAA guys, including Guerrera. And Guerrera ends up getting upset over, him hitting him, and they start pushing each other and everything. And they have to be separated and whatnot. And after the match, everyone's apologizing. Antonio Pena's apologizing for Guerrera, and Sasuke's apologizing. But the only thing is, Guerrera won't accept Sasuke's apology. So it's supposed to set up a match between the two in AAA, but by the time Sasuke got to AAA, his passport or his visa was not. He could not work due to his visa problems. So he ended up just doing another angle in AAA so that the AAA fans would kind of set up, know about this angle and know about this feud to set up a match.
Very cool. And did any match ever happen?
I don't actually even know. I could probably look it up, but off the top of my head, I don't think so.
I was checking out Cage Match, and I never saw Sasuke going to Mexico at that time. So yeah, I don't think so. So okay, going on the January 6th show, Pogo defeated Onita for the Brass Knuckles Championship. During the match, a masked man debuted, attacked Onita, costing him the match. Who was this man, and where was the angle leading?
It was Goru Surumi, who was a former, he came from IWE, so he's a long time wrestler. He was in All Japan in the 80s, and he had been working for Now at the time. And so pretty much it was just to set up Pogo and Surumi as tag partners for the tour, because they were going to do a FMW Brass Knuckles Tag Team title tournament for the month.
All right, and another new face on the show is Supari Mac. Who was this?
That was Kumiko Matsuda. She had always been with FMW. She was, since the beginning. She started up with the company in 89, 90 or so. So she was just one of the women's wrestlers, and she changed her name and pretty soon after became a heel and joined the Shark Tashia's heel Mad Dog military group.
Awesome. Now, also, the January tour here, it features the tag team tournament for the FMW Brass Knuckles Tag Team Championships. Now, normally they were doing the tag team tournament in December. Was there any real reason to move it to a month later?
Well, the whole thing with December was Matsunaga and Onita, so they had leading that up to the big match. That was the dream match and everything. So there was no real reason to have a tag team tournament that month because they needed to build towards the dream match and the big show and everything. Whereas January there wasn't really that much, so they could focus on having a tag team tournament in January instead.
Now, the Gladiator and Big Titan, they won the titles on the 18th, and after there was a beatdown angle that involved the female wrestler Awate, what happened with her?
Okay, so Kiko Iwami, she hovered over Onita after Pogo and all of them had beat him down, and so she's covering over him, and Pogo sets up like he's going to blow a fireball at her. Mr. Ganosuke ends up running into the ring and shoving her out of the way, and he ends up taking the brunt of the fireball instead. So it's kind of to show how sadistic Pogo is that he doesn't care if there's a woman or anything like that. He's gonna, if you're on FMW, he's gonna, try and burn you.
Now, I know that this was a different time and stuff, but is there any backlash? Like, is there any wrong type of heat when it comes to dealing with Pogo beating down the women in that way?
Well, he didn't really do anything on that one. That was that was just kind of a tease. He was about to, but a couple years earlier, I believe it was Tiger Jeet Singh, when he made his appearance in '92, he ended up attacking Yuki Nabino, who was a women's wrestler, and that made front magazine cover and everything of the Weekly Pro magazine, was Onita hovering over Nabino's body after Jeet Singh had attacked her. So I think it was kind of taken off of that of, hey, this was successful 2 years ago, let's try it again, with a different guy and a different weapon.
Also, Dave noted that Channel 12 in Japan, they started a 30-minute wrestling recap show that would also feature highlights from FMW and War. Was this seen as a type of major exposure, and have you ever seen any of these clips?
Yeah, it was called Battle Weekly. I got a bunch of them actually. I wouldn't say it's pretty much the equivalent of Samurai TV's Battlemen, where it's just 30 minutes or an hour of just showing highlights of all the shows from that past couple days and stuff. And I wouldn't say it's high exposure. I mean, I don't think people, it doesn't hurt, but I don't think it was getting a lot of people in the crowd and stuff, helping out that much. But like I said, it didn't hurt, and it did show some exposure to people who might not be, who obviously didn't, weren't following FMW or anything like that. But it wasn't the reason. I wouldn't say it helped, crowds that much or anything.
Okay, cool. Now, in Wing, there's just a couple Wing notes real quick. One of the new faces is going to be Mugen. Who is this?
That was Hiroshi Hatanaka. So he, at the time, he was coming in. He was coming in from Now. So it was just the original Now had closed down, and so he was just he pretty much got a job offer with Wing. After that, he ended up going, he ended up staying with Canones and following him through IWA Puerto Rico, IWA Japan. He ended up just working indies into the mid '90s, SPWF, Tokyo Pro, and ended up in War before retiring in the late '90s.
Right. Also, Wing, at this point, they're doing a lot of the Spike Nail matches, as well as there's a company, we talked about it last time, Pro Wrestling Crusaders. They're also doing several of the Spike Nail matches. Are these working to draw crowds for Wing?
Well, they were only doing Wing only did about one this tour, and PWC Pro Wrestling Crusaders did one as well, just the same month. But what it is yeah, it's kind of a cheaper way to have like an ultimate death match. You don't need explosions, and you don't need to set up barbed wire, or exploding barbed wire or anything, and it's not as deadly as fire, or you're not running the risk like fire and stuff like that, and it looks a lot worse than what it is, so it's a good image and everything, and so it's just a lot easier to use. And so and it was popular. Wing had used it a year or two earlier, and it gotten over and drew real well. So it's kind of just like, hey, this drew real well, and we're struggling, let's try it again. And Pro Wrestling Crusaders are like, hey, Wing did it and it worked, so let's do it also.
Is At this point in Wing, is there like a rule? Because I noticed the fire death matches stopped after the big the big fiasco with the Kanemaru injury. Is there a noted idea of like, okay, let's stop with the fire?
Probably. I mean, I don't know exactly, but yeah, I mean, it stopped after that, and it's kind of like, okay, this isn't worth it. They were doing it because it was kind of getting over, and it was cheap, and if you knew what you were doing, it wasn't, that much, no one was getting hurt or serious hurt, and then, Kanemaru ends up, getting power bombed into the fire, and three-fourths his back is burnt up and everything, and it's like, we can't risk that having that happen again. Like, if that happens again, I mean, we're idiots pretty much to be not, because Kanemaru is one of the top guys, and now he's out, we're struggling. What if if we do it with someone else and they get badly injured? It's we know better at this point.
Right. Also, at the end of the month, Jado and Geto, they left Wing for War. Now, is there any story to this, or was it just a money issue?
Yeah, I think it's a money issue. Wing is losing money. They're not able to pay all their guys and everything at this point. They're really struggling financially, and War, there was an offer with War. I don't even know if they exactly were freelancers that just mostly worked for War at this time, and then they ended up getting a permanent job eventually. But yeah, I think it was just, hey, we're getting offered, we're not getting paid that much in Wing. We're getting better offer to work for a more prominent company. So they took it.
Going into February, on the Hayabusa front, Hayabusa is still in Mexico, and he's switching companies a little bit. What's going on down there with him?
All right. So when I last talked about him, he had just gotten the costume and the mask and everything like that, and had been doing the training with Rey Mysterio Sr. and everything. Well, after he graduated from, the Lucha Libre School of Mysterio, he was able to get, he was able to work WWA in Tijuana. Problem with Tijuana is they were only paying him literally $2 to $3 a match. And so he's not making much at all. Like his first match, he comes out and they're chanting Chino, Chino at him, which is, Spanish for Chinese. So, and then, so he's already like, happy he has a mask because he's so upset. His face is so upset over, just the reaction, everything. And then, to get paid $2 or $3, and, he ends up using it on a Coke and a hot dog pretty much. And, after his first match. And so he's just not getting paid very much. And he ends up, and the issue is, coming up, his visa at the end of the year in late '93 is expiring, and so he needs to get with, and WWA is not going to renew it, so he needs to be with like a legitimate company that's going to renew it. So he ends up meeting up with Ultimo Dragon, who was in Tijuana working for AAA at the time, and Hayabusa's like, hey, hey, I need to work for AAA. Like I'm not gonna be, my visa's gonna expire, and I'm not gonna be able to work here anymore. And Dragon goes, come on down to Mexico City with me. And so Hayabusa flies over to Mexico City. He stays at it pretty much is called Japan Inn. I mean, it was a Mexico City hotel called Pinchin Amigo, where all the Japanese wrestlers stayed at. Tiger Mask, which was Kanemoto, Dragon, Sasuke would stay there, and so he stays there. And he goes to a AAA show. He ends up meeting with Antonio Pena, and Antonio Pena says, "Yeah, I'll give you $800 a week if you work a AAA show to come work for me," which just sounds like a dream to Hayabusa. Like now he's making $2 to $3 a match, and now here's a guy going, "I'll pay you $800 to work," and he ends up getting his visa renewed and everything. Problem is, he ends up only getting like one booking for the month, and he doesn't get to pay the $800 that he was promised either. So he ends up only working one show in February '94, and then at this point it's like I'm not working. He's only worked a couple of matches, and so at the moment he's pretty much miserable right now, and he's not working. He's just pretty much at the gym, just working out and everything, and pretty much hanging out with Kanemoto at this point.
In general, how many matches did he have during this stint?
Overall, or the first, like, at this point, where, because he worked about 10 matches in WWA Tijuana, and then, like I said, he worked one match in February '94, and then one match in March '94, and then he ended up seeing Conan at the gym, and he goes up to Conan and he's like, "Hey, why am I not never working for AAA?" And Conan goes, "That's because AAA and New Japan are working together, and so we have to have Kanemoto on the show, and we don't want too many Japanese guys on the show. So we're following New Japan's orders. We're working with New Japan, and we don't want tons of Japanese guys on the show."
So he's only wrestling like 15 matches in the full year then.
He ends up working more, but we'll get to that in a minute. But at this point, yeah, he's only worked about 10 matches or so total.
Oh, man, it sounds awful. Well, yeah, we're going to check in on him in a little bit. So in the month of February, FMW, they ran a tournament to crown their first women's championship. A couple of the people that they brought in, a few of them I've heard of, a lot of them I haven't. One is Leilani Kai.
Yeah, she was pretty much one of Fabulous Moolah's girls. She had worked WrestleMania 1 and 10. She had been everywhere and worked a long time. She worked in WCW. She worked in St. Louis. She worked in Florida. Memphis against Tarzan Goto's wife. So I wonder if that was one of the things of how she got brought in also. But yeah, so she was pretty much she was a very established veteran at this point.
Another one is Lolana Gonzalez, or I'm sorry, Lola Gonzalez.
Yeah, she was a AAA girl. She'd been working AAA. She had started up in CMLL, and she was working AAA at this point.
Okay, and finally, Neftali.
She was also a AAA girl also. So she was one of the. I think she also had worked at Tijuana in the past and everything, but I think she was a AAA, working AAA at this point.
Now, I'm just curious. You just mentioned that Conan said that they have the working relationship with New Japan, but here they're sending AAA is sending the women over to FMW. Is there any how does the politics of this all work?
Well, it's different with the men and the women, where they have a deal with New Japan to have Tiger Mask, Kanemoto work and everything. But then the women, hey, you want to go to Japan and get paid there and everything, you're free to and get paid more than we're offering to pay you, and have at it. So it's one of those things where they're not rivals or anything with FMW, and they got along when they met up in January, but they decided to work with New Japan on the men's side, and so that was their priority. But with women, Lola Gonzalez or anything like that, hey, you go to Japan, make some money. You're free to do that.
All right. Moving over to Wing, one of the new faces that's going to be on the Wing tour in this month is Hiroshi Ono. Who was Ono?
He was a Now wrestler. He had came in through through the Now promotion, and with the original one closing down, he went over there. He ended up working IWA Japan after he only worked a couple shows in Wing because Wing was on its last legs also. So he made the transfer over to IWA Japan soon after.
Awesome. Now I'm just curious, does Wing have any type of dojo or a training system?
I think they kind of like, I don't know if they had a dojo, but I do believe they trained wrestlers, but it's more of, I don't think they brought in that many new wrestlers to like make their debut or anything like that. Cause it seems like every wrestler had a past and everything, but I think there was training so there might've been a dojo, but not necessarily like, hey, we're bringing in new guys every, year or so to help the roster or anything.
Okay. On the 11th, Wing had a sold-out show at Kuroken Hall, and they had an angle with Now. Do you know the background behind this angle?
Yeah, they're just gonna. The new Now promotion was starting up, and so Kendo Nagasaki had a new lease on life and everything, and they were gonna work with Wing. And so after the show, or after the main event, all the wrestlers are out and in the ring and they're celebrating and everything. And Kendo Nagasaki comes from the crowd, grabs a chair, and just starts beating the crap out of everybody to make to show, I'm here, I'm gonna knock all of you out. Now's better than Wing, so it's kind of an interpromotional thing, and he just beat the crap out of everyone pretty much.
All right. Also, in the series on February 15th, Hito announced that he's going to be leaving Wing for the NSBW. We haven't really talked about them. Who were the NSBW?
So it was actually it was called New Fight Pro Wrestling, which also known as Shingaku. That was Masashi Aoyagi, who we talked about in the '89. He worked the first FMW show against Onita and everything. He started up a promotion in Nagoya, and it was kind of going to be a Shudo promotion. And he brought in some names. Ichiro Yaguchi worked there. A lot of independent guys worked there. And like I said, it was going to be a Shudo promotion, and it did not do very well. And then Aoyagi ended up getting a deal with the WWF when WWF was touring in Japan in May '94, and Aoyagi started working the shows there and everything. And once he finished with that, the fans are like, wait, you're trying to portray this promotion as like mixed martial arts, and we're the legit tough guys, we're bigger, and we're actual tough guys compared to pro wrestlers and stuff, black belts and everything, and now you're working WWF, who's entertainment. You're the exact opposite. And so that actually kind of soured on already a small crowd, and the box office went even farther down, and it ended up not even making it throughout the year.
All right, cool. Well, not cool. Just to bring it up, Wing Talent is told that they can start taking bookings at outside companies, and things are looking really bad. But as I just said, they're still selling out Kuroken Hall. Why are they so unstable? Like, where is their money going?
Well, they didn't really sell out. I think the show on the 11th might have been a sellout. But if you look at the 15th, which is the show with Kenner versus Hito and the loser leaves Wing match, that's not a sellout. They proclaimed it a sellout, but you look at it and it's half filled. So there's that issue right there. But also the thing is with Corrigan Hall, it's a building that even if you are, especially in the 90s, if you're struggling, or you can still draw and make money at Corrigan Hall, but it's the touring that's going to really keep you alive. And if you can tour and draw money with tours and everything, that's how you pretty much can survive and everything, because Corrigan Hall, you're going to make money at Corrigan Hall, but you can't just live off of Corrigan Hall, because if you're just living off Corrigan Hall, then you need to run it more than once a month. And if you start running it more than once a month, then you're going to oversaturate the crowd. It's kind of like the ECW arena with ECW, where ECW could run the ECW arena they can make money off ECW arena, but their promotion is based off touring and everything. If you you just ran ECW arena every time, that's going to take a hit every time, and it's going to, it will no longer become, the automatic payday that you expect it to be.
All right. Speaking of these guys working outside, there are two shows, one on February 17th and one on February 23rd, where there's a lot of wing talent. One is an indie show with no name attached that I could find, but you mentioned that...
It was Pro Wrestling Crusaders.
Okay. And you mentioned that Kanemaru appeared and he got pretty sliced up. Do you have any notes about the show?
It was a Pro Wrestling Crusaders show. And like you said, the wing guys at this point are free to work elsewhere, and so they work against and at this point, Pro Wrestling Crusaders, they got a like pretty much an alien gimmick going on, like the Super Ucho powers, which was Kochihiro Kimura, who ended up having the gimmick in DDT later on. But yeah, it's just Kanemaru at this point, he's not really ready to come back. He can't take simple bumps and everything, or, well, it hurts a lot to take simple bumps. His back is still not fully recovered, but Wing needed him, and he wants to make money and everything. So at this point, and he's known for his blood and everything, so it's just easier just to blade and get cut open than to take, to have an actual wrestling match or something like that.
And the show on the 23rd, it's listed as Independent Wrestling Union, and they used a lot of wing talent. Do you know anything about this show?
About that show, the Union is Goru Tsurumi's promotion, like we had talked about earlier. So that was a promotion that he had started up, and they had tried death matches and everything, kind of a different way. Like they had Poison Sawada before he was in DDT and everything like that. It's kind of a very indie sleazy type promotion. Those they're really kind of starting to pop up at this point. The lesser financial run promotions. And this is one of them.
Just to sidetrack, because I'm curious, what was the company that they were constantly running the match? It was Ken the Box versus someone, the Giant Evil Tree.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
It was like not SPWF.
It was like Saitama Pro. I think it was Saitama Pro with Survival to Beat. Yeah, I think it was Saitama Pro, I believe.
Yeah,
SPW. Our listeners will know that one.
Yeah, there was a point in the 90s where at the end of all of my tapes there would be one of these sleazy no-ring shows, and it's just funny seeing the rise of those because I used to love those shows. Okay, moving on. On February 26th, as you mentioned, now reopens. The Sings are still on top. Do you know what are the terms for this new lease on Now, and who is in charge?
Kendo Nagasaki is still in charge. They just pretty much found a new backer. They were losing money, and the original sponsor pulled out, and they were able to find a new backer. And at this point, Tiger Jeet Singh is still somewhat of a draw as a heel and everything. And the roster's thin, and they got to go with what they feel works. And Tiger Jeet Singh 2 years earlier had drew 30,000 at Yokohama Stadium, and prior to that, worked against Onoki, and so he's the biggest name. And at this point, you just got to go with what you have, and so that's they used him kind of as the top draw because they didn't really have anyone else.
All right. Also at the end of the month is going to announces the first Super J Cup. This will be the 1994 J Cup. For those who don't know, this was, I think, one of the very the first super famous Japanese shows that people would tape trade and stuff when I was young. And this was an inter-promotional juniors tournament. We're going to talk about it more when it happens in April, but just to start, do you know who was in charge of this, and were all of the different companies on board, and how hard was it to book this?
So it was originally called, New Japan was going to promote it, and Jushin Liger was in charge, looking and everything. And so they reached out to some other companies to have like an all-star show, and they reached out to FMW, they reached out to Michinoku Pro, they reached out to the full promotion, which was Grand Hamada was working at. So they weren't reaching out to All Japan or anything like that. They figured, hey, these smaller promotions, they'll gladly have their talent work these shows and everything to get more exposure, to run, to work in front of Sumo Hall and everything. The only promotion that really kind of pulled out and didn't want anything to do with it was the full promotion, because they didn't want Gran Hamada doing the job in the first round. That would look bad. He's their top guy, and so they did not want, they didn't want to participate. There's a little bit of headaches and everything. They wanted Sabu to work the show, but FMW did not want him to lose in the first round either. So again, there's politics involved, especially but again, New Japan's the top game, top in the game and everything, and someone like Michinoku Pro or even FMW or whatnot, they're going to work with them to get, to show off, hey, look, these are great wrestlers, and and there'll be an audience that will know, hey, these guys are really good.
At the end of the month, Onita is announced as a celebrity representative of some type of AIDS awareness group. How serious was this? And when they picked him, was there an irony involved?
No, there wasn't an irony. I mean, no, this gets made fun of a lot about Onita because he gets cut so often, bleeding and everything. But I don't think of any wrestler has ever transferred HIV or anything, or AIDS or anything like that, to another wrestler by bleeding on them. I know hepatitis has been transferred over and everything, but getting blood on you, you're not going to really get HIV. So I know Onita got made fun of a lot because you're bleeding all the time, and I know Dave would criticize him and stuff for this, but it's more of, hey, yeah, he is bleeding a lot, and so he's probably more aware of the situation. He's dealing with it more than a normal wrestler, because he is it's the early to mid 90s. It is one of the main topics in the world at this point, the HIV scare, and here he is bleeding and everything. But so he definitely, he was probably getting tested all the time and whatnot, and it just became kind of a thing where, hey, I want to be, get my name out there and get good, attention of, hey, I'm trying to, prevent this, from getting even bigger. So it wasn't in irony or in jest or anything like that. I mean, it was a legitimate, kind of crusade that Onita had going at the time.
Now, going into March, on March 2nd, Onita and Goto, they appeared in War, and they defeated Tenryu in a tag match, with Onita actually pinning Tenryu. How big of a deal was it to pin him at this time?
It was a pretty big deal because, in the mid '80s, Onita was a mid carder and Tenryu was the top guy, and so, Tenryu had defeated Antonio Inoki at the Tokyo Dome in the main event, for 2 months earlier. So for Onita to get the pin and everything, it kind of established, like, hey, I'm up there with the top guys. Look, I'm, with the Choshus and the Fujinamis and the Tenryus and the Inokis. I'm up there. I can get a win over Tenryu and everything. And it's to set up, but it also helps set up the Kawasaki match in May.
At this show, it is officially announced that Onita will be facing Tenryu in the main event of the now annual May 5th Kawasaki show. How does the buzz compare to the Funk match?
It was bigger because Tenryu at this time is a bigger star. Funk was a big star in the '80s, and he had some, still somewhat of a name value, but his, retirement and everything, and he hadn't really been working Japan that often, by that point. So he wasn't he wasn't a current superstar at this point. Tenryu is a current superstar. Like I said, he just had main evented a 50,000 plus seat Tokyo Dome show on January 4th, defeating Antonio Inoki. So he, it's a big deal at this point, and the attendance ended up showing it was a big deal.
How hard was it to work with War? Because there was at the various press shows they would do I don't know if it was an angle, but there was a bit of a disagreement about whether it would be a death match, would it be a bombing match? Like, was it difficult to find a middle ground of what type of match to do?
There were issues, but they ended up working it out. Onita wanted, it's Kawasaki Stadium. I want an exploding cage match. And Tenryu goes, no, I'm not a deathmatch wrestler. I want we can have a cage, but it's just going to be a cage match and everything. So they ended up meeting in the middle, and it ended up being kind of like when they hit the cage, or the cage would explode. So there would be explosions, but there was no time bomb. The ring didn't explode or anything like that for this show. So, I mean, again, and at this point, you're kind of expecting, an exploding ring at Kawasaki Stadium, but Tenryu wasn't going to do that. And you kind of had to meet, they both had to meet halfway.
Now, also at this time, it's announced that Hayabusa is going to be in the Super J Cup, and he will be representing FMW. Is there any hype for Hayabusa returning, and are there any plans for him to re-enter the roster?
No, there's no hype at all. Nobody even really knows who Hayabusa is at this point. So pretty much what happens is, Hayabusa's not working at all. He's working once a month. He's just at the gym and everything. He gets a call from Shoshi Arai going, "Hey, you're going to compete in this All-Star game that New Japan's running." And he's like, "Wait, what? What are you talking about?" And he goes, "You're gonna run. New Japan's running Sumo Hall in April, and you're going to represent FMW." And he's like, "No, I can't do that. I've only worked 10 matches. I'm not ready for that. I can't, I'm not, I went on this learning excursion, to kind of excel in lucha libre and everything. And I've barely had any experience in everything." And so Rai goes, "Okay, let me talk to Onita." Onita comes, goes, "Nope, he's doing it." So he goes, "You're doing it. You got to come by." And so he ends up he's not working or anything. So he ends up, working out with Kanemoto in the gym and everything. And then he ends up getting a first class flight to Narita, and he ends up sitting next to Ultimo Dragon. And Hayabusa ends up just babbling to Dragon, being like, "I'm not ready for this. I can't do this. I don't feel comfortable," and everything like that. And so anyway, so he ends up, going over to the New Japan dojo and everything, flying into Narita, and because of the time difference and the jet lag and everything, he actually ends up oversleeping, and makes the bus that's going to go to the New Japan dojo ends up being late because of him. So he's already starting off on a bad foot. All these wrestlers, Liger and everything, are waiting 10 plus extra minutes because Hayabusa's late. So anyway, so he gets on the bus and heads over to the New Japan dojo, and he starts to feel a little more comfortable working out in the ring and everything. He ends up doing a shooting star press. So he goes, "At least I got one move I can pull out and everything," because he hit the shooting star press in the dojo at the ring and everything. And so he felt a little more comfortable. And he was actually asked, okay, he asked, "Do I go as Hayabusa or am I going as Eiji Izaki?" And they go, "It doesn't matter." And so he goes, "I'm going to be Hayabusa then, because if I fail," which he's feeling like he's not going to do very well, "at least when I come back to Japan, I can scrap this Hayabusa gimmick and just go back as Eiji Izaki, and nobody's going to know who I was." But anyway, so he ends up having a match against Liger, and it ends up being a total success for him. And he ends up really, showing off. Has a cool look and everything. And this is the first time that Japan is really getting to see who Hayabusa is. And there's the famous spot where he does the tope con hilo, at the beginning of the match on Liger, and he ends up hitting a shooting star press and ends up taking a really hard Liger bomb, and ends up losing to Liger. But it's a complete success, and the crowd is really, he gets over in one night, and this is, he became a star based off this one match. And and it's funny because the announcers are actually announcing like, "Oh, this is Hayabusa. He's a big time Mexican superstar," when he had, nobody even in Mexico really knew who he was. So he ends up going back to Mexico pretty much right away. And at this point, he is still in AAA and not working because it didn't really, it still wasn't really known, it hadn't hit worldwide or anything that, this was a successful character or anything like that. He didn't even know until a month later how much of a success he was.
Cool, and we're going to talk about it next show a lot, but I'm really curious about how he re-enters the roster. Sticking with FMW, on the 17th, Pogo defeated Onita again for the Brass Knuckles Championship. During the match, Pogo debuted what I know Pogo as, which is he debuted his axe-based weapons, the spikes, the axes, the scythe. And I've always found these weapons to be very sick and brutal. Where did the idea come from, and was there any danger in working with them, and what were the ways of getting around the gimmicks?
Well, he came up with the idea. It's just kind of an alternate version of kind of what the Sheik and Abdullah the Butcher were doing, with the forks and everything. So he kind of took that idea and just kind of made it more, his own thing. And it's kind of, it's pretty much like a blading your back. He is, he is cutting your back and everything, and and it can, hurt and whatnot, and it can leave scars and everything, and a lot of guys did not want to do that. They didn't want to work with Pogo or have those, weapons jigged into them. Onita was willing to do it, and a lot of the FMW guys that are going to do it, they're willing to and everything. But it can leave marks and everything. Onita's back is pretty much scarred up. A good reason because of Pogo's sickle and everything. And Hayabusa had a huge scar on his chest from Pogo just cutting deep into his chest and everything. So, but again, it's just kind of part of the business and everything of willing, hey, Pogo's a 40 plus years senior veteran in the business, and most of these guys are 15, 20 years, or not even 15, 5, 10 years into the business. And if Onita's willing to do it, of course they're going to, they got to do it as well.
That's such a, don't be a bitch. Just let him cut your gut open. It's okay.
If the boss can do it, so can you.
Yeah. The one that always, the two things that always kind of, and I don't want to talk about it so much, but I'm just so curious is like when he digs his scythe into Onita's gut and starts spinning it around. That's one that always gets my skin boiling. And the other is in the Masato Tanaka Hayabusa explosion match. He's taking a knife and it looks like he's like cutting the hell out of Tanaka, but I'm guessing that was a gimmick blade because of the way he was cutting him. There was no way. It's just one of those FMW moments that everyone always knows. Going back to Wing, real quick, and this will be the last thing that we talk about Wing for a while. On March 13th, Wing held a show. This would wind up being their last show. Now, I want to go real quickly to the main event. The main event is some sort of a cream-filled ring comedy match. Do you know anything about this show and this match and like how it went off?
It did not make tape, so it was really not very well known. It was kind of a shaving cream, like shaving cream was everywhere and whatnot. I do know that, but like I said, it didn't really make tape. I wasn't able to find a magazine with pictures or anything like that, so I don't have the best idea as far as how it went. But yeah, like you said, it was a comedy match for the most part, and I mean, there still was rivals. They were main event and everything, but I think it was just kind of a different take of let's try this because everything else is not working.
Did they know when it started that this would be the final show?
I think it was kind of like ECW where the promoter knows and the wrestlers kind of have an idea, but a lot of the wrestlers are holding out hope. Like Kanemaru, he's going, Wing's still going to make it. Wing's still going to go on, but everyone else is kind of seeing the writing on the wall, and Miki Ibaragi kind of, he knows also, like, I don't have enough. I'll keep doing this.
All right, cool. And so going into that, Dave reported in the beginning of April that Victor Canonis announced that he is going to be leaving, and he's going to create IWA. Nakamaki, Winger, and Araya, they left Wing officially. This would only leave Kanemaru as the final Wing roster member. And he announced that he was not signing with IWA. Was Kanemaru at this point, when IWA is announced and he's the last man standing, saying that he's not going to leave? Is this an angle, or does he actually think that this is actually going to work?
He didn't. I don't know if it was an angle. I mean, he obviously ended up going to IWA, but he was completely loyal to Wing at this point in time. He, like I said, he doesn't, he's holding on hope. A lot of the ECW wrestlers were like this too, where, ECW hadn't worked hadn't worked in months, and you still had wrestlers going, oh, I have faith in Paul. I have faith in Paul. He'll pull it together, and, ECW will start back up and everything. And Kanemaru is really good friends with Miki Ibaragi at this point, and, he's probably getting told, yeah, there'll be another show. There'll be another show. I just need time and, get some more money. And so, and Kanemaru's working other shows and whatnot, but it's kind of one of those like, oh, this doesn't, the light is starting to dim, and it's starting to look, the door is starting to get closed.
Who would wind up being the money men behind IWA?
I always called him Marty Asano. I was trying to look up. I couldn't find anything on the name Marty Asano, but it was Tatsukuni Asano. But I believe his name was Marty.
Okay, and was Mickey Ibaragi involved?
No, Asano had worked. Had been working in the wing office and everything, but Mickey had nothing to do with the IWA promotion.
Okay. And just two more questions about him. One is when so when they form IWA, it's a lot of the same people. Is there any type of meeting or where they say, okay, what is going to be different this time?
I don't necessarily know if there was a meeting or anything, but I think it's just kind of one of those like, hey, with a different booker, with a different, we add some extra wrestlers, and everything like that. This will be different, and and also, hey, Asano was very rich. He was a very rich businessman who owned a lot of restaurants and everything. So maybe they just felt like, hey, that was the problem with Wing was we didn't have the right financial backer, but with the right financial backer, we can make this a successful promotion. And it was a successful promotion for a little while.
And finally, this is just a question about the philosophy of the Japanese companies. It just seems like now has been brought back at least once. And I can think of 100 times where a company folds, and then the same guys, they just open up a new company, Apache Pro folding to become Freedoms, and it's like, what is this idea that we're just going to keep? If something fails, they just re-energize it with maybe a new name, but it's usually the same company. Like, what is the idea behind that?
Well, they want to keep working. They want to keep, they like the guys that they're working with and everything. And, they want to keep it going. And if there's a hiccup on the road and they're able to, pick it up and start something else new, then that's what they're going to do. Even if it keeps failing. But, if let's say you get a financial backer that's willing to, promote a show, even if it's failing and whatnot, and you're making money, your friends are making money, you're getting to wrestle, which is what you love to do, and you're not guaranteed another job elsewhere. So if so let's even say that promotion ends up failing again. If you can find another financial backer, then why not keep it going? And it's their money, it's not your money. You're getting paid. You're getting to do what you love. You're getting to work and everything. So just keep going until you can't find another financial backer that's willing to help you out.
Okay, cool. Also, at this time, I read this in the Observer, and I never knew this. Apparently, Hiroshi Ono suffered a broken back of some sort. Do you know how severe the injury
He didn't
was?
miss any. He didn't miss any match or any tours or anything, so I don't know how severe it was. I do know it gave him problems, and he retired right after King of the Death match, which is probably what he's best known for, being in that tournament and everything. So in August '95, so he didn't make it very much longer, and he actually ended up becoming a chiropractor afterwards. So I'm guessing, due to his back issues and everything, and him having to probably go to a chiropractor and whatnot, he probably just started to learn how to become one, so he could, and have a full time job and not have to keep, working on his bad back, wrestling while having a bad back.
Okay. Now, sometime in April, they ran an angle where Onita and Tenryu, they're doing the press conferences for the big show, and Onita announces that he's going to retire if he does not win. Where does this idea come from?
He's beaten up. He's working a very hard style with the barbed wire and everything, getting cut up, getting and these street fights. He'd been talking in promos during like those Onita theater times. He'd talk about retirement, years earlier. So at this point, his body is really, hurting and everything, and he sees himself as a celebrity and whatnot, and realizes, hey, I could be a movie star. And I can make more money. I can be more famous, and I don't have to my body doesn't have to take the punishment and everything. So I'm, going to put and hey, that it'll help out if I announce I'll retire if I lose to Tenryu. It'll help with the gate and everything, because a lot of the people, with Onita beating Tenryu in the tag match and more, everyone's assuming already Tenryu's going to win. He's going to get his win back. But if you add in the stipulation Onita is going to retire, that makes you wait. Onita retire, then what would happen to FMW? What would be, and I'm going to go see this, so it just adds more intrigue to a match, and it helped. And with Onita's, it fits into Onita's plan anyway at this time.
When he says this, does he already, like, is it already set that he's definitely gonna lose?
Yeah, he knew. Yeah, that was the deal when they first made the deal of FMW and War working. It was Onita's going to get the tag win and Tenryu's going to get the Kawasaki Stadium win, because Tenryu's not losing twice to Onita.
All right, cool. Now, in April, Matsunaga he returns, and he's wrestling the opening match on most of the cards. What is the story behind his return at this time?
Yeah, so he came back in March, actually, after a couple months with the knee injury and everything, and he has a big time rival with Tarzan Goto and everything. And Tarzan Goto hates him; he hates Tarzan Goto, but he's no longer in the heel group or whatnot. So he wants Onita. Hey, Onita, let me join the FMW side. I'm not with Pogo or anything like that anymore. And Onita's like, I can't trust you. And Matsunaga's pretty much goes, well, let me work the opening matches then. I'll start from the beginning. I'll start over. I'll start and, working, against Tanaka and Kuroda, who are opening match guys. And I'll work my way up and, prove that I'm, worthy of, you taking me, accepting me and everything. And so at this point, he's just working the opening matches, and also it helps with his injury as well, because his knee is still bad off. So it's 2 to 3 minute matches and everything. It's getting his name out there again. It's setting up an angle, and he's getting to work light matches.
Okay, cool. And this led to an angle on April 17th. What happened?
So Pogo is after one of the main event matches, and Pogo is about to set fire to Ganosuke, and Matsunaga sees this, and he ends up shoving Ganosuke out of the way, and Pogo ends up blowing a fireball at Matsunaga, burning up his shoulder and everything. And so Onita sees that and goes, okay, what you just did, you sacrificed your body, for an FMW guy. Okay, I can trust you. And Matsunaga and Onita hug, and Matsunaga becomes part of the FMW team.
All right, cool. Moving on to April. On April 23rd, just to round out the month, now they ran a Toshimitsu Naoi memorial show. Who was he, and what was his connection to Now?
He was just an undercard worker in '90, and he ended up dying from a truck accident. So he hadn't really established his name or anything, and then he had a tragedy. And so this was just kind of a memorial show for him.
Right. And the big news from the show is that the Sings announced that they are going to leave Now by no-showing this. Why are they no-showing this and everything?
Probably politics. It's really difficult to deal with them and everything. It's they don't want a job. They want to be the top heel. Well, Singh and his friend Umanosuke Ueda, who was a long-time wrestler as well. They don't want a job. They're having bad matches. The top heels, you're supposed to at least have the babyface eventually win. And, Singh is going, well, I'm a bigger star than anyone here. I don't want to lose to any.
I can't stand them. Anyway, going into May at the May 5th Kawasaki Dream Show of 1994, Tenryu defeated Onita in the main event. How did this match compare to the other deathmatch spectacles that FMW had run at this stadium?
The match is okay. It's not as the photos or anything aren't as jaw dropping or whatnot. I mean, the main photos that you'll see here really are just kind of like Tenryu going into the exploding cage, like the explosion taking place and stuff. So it wasn't what the Funk match was, and it wasn't what later matches would be. It was a solid match and everything though, and I mean, it drew 52,000 people. So regardless, it was a success. So, and it led to Onita announcing his retirement afterwards.
So when he announces his retirement, like what is the, because he announces that he's going to go on a 1 year tour, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So he pretty much goes, well, I didn't tell you how long, I didn't say when I was going to retire. Because Antonio Inoki kind of was doing the same thing where he was on this long retirement tour, years and years. So Onita goes, I'm going to have a 1 year retirement tour in place. So again, it adds into the, I'm going to get, I'm going to make even more money because now people are going to want to see me for the last time. And, so they're going to, so it's kind of a theme to the next year or so leading up to another Kawasaki match that's going to do even better.
And is the FMW office, are they on board with this? Are they like, are they okay with Onita leaving basically?
At this point, Onita is the boss, so it doesn't matter. And Onita is under the impression that FMW is going to close down after he leaves because Onita is FMW. But later on, as you get closer and closer, Onita's stepfather is one of he's kind of in the ownership of the group and everything. He's a minority owner, and he tells Onita, FMW can't close down with you retiring. Everyone's gonna see you retire, and all these people lose their job and everything, and because of you got to sell it. So, but at this point, Onita is FMW's closing when I retire next year.
All right. I'm going to save a lot of questions for the next couple shows when he actually does leave, but obviously it's going to be a big event when he actually leaves. What was Tenryu's experience with working with Onita?
He enjoyed it. I mean, because he ended up, this wasn't the end of the relationship or anything. Onita ended up working a Sumo Hall show with War in July, and in '99 when Onita started up his own promotion again, him and Tenryu worked together as well. So they became business partners based off of this relationship.
Cool. Also on the card, Megumi Kudo defeated Yumiko Hota from AJ All Japan Women. How big of a deal was it for Kudo to win this match?
This was a pretty big deal because it was kind of a big spotlight match. Hota was even more of a senior than Kudo. She started up in '85. Kudo started in '86, and Hota was a better worker and everything like that. And she's a great All Japan Women's wrestler and everything. So this is a really a step like, hey, look, Kudo can, she'd already had a tag win over Minami Toyota the previous year and everything. So it's just to kind of help build like, hey, she's the real deal. She can beat the top level talent of All Japan Women.
All right. And one name that just popped out, and I've been dying to talk about him, Jado and Gato, they teamed with Kodo Fuki, and they lost to Team Canada. Who was Fuki, and why was he on this card, and what was his history at this point?
So Fuyuki started up in IWE, promotion we kind of talked about. It was in the late '70s, early '80s. He started up in '80, and it was it's kind of the forefront to FMW. It kind of had cage matches and brawling and everything. It was kind of the number 3 promotion and whatnot. Well, it closed down, and Fuyuki went over to All Japan and trained with the All Japan dojo and everything. And he's probably best known in All Japan for teaming up with Toshiaki Kawada and forming the Footloose tag team in late '80s, early '90s, and everything like that. And then when Tenryu was leaving All Japan for SWS, he took a lot of the All Japan talent with him, which included Fuyuki. So Fuyuki went to SWS with Tenryu, and then when SWS closed and Tenryu started up War, Fuyuki followed. And so at this point, Fuyuki is with the War promotion. He's kind of like the number 2 guy, number 1 heel, feuding with Tenryu a lot at this point. And he had just formed a relationship with Jado and Geto that they would become business partners and work together for the next 5-6 years or so.
We're going to be talking about him a lot in a couple years.
Yep, a lot.
A lot. Does news of Onita's intended retirement, what does it do to attendance as the tours go forward?
It helps out actually. I mean, there's a spike and everything, and I mean, they're still, not necessarily at the beginning. I mean, the shows are still doing really well. I don't know if you can credit the retirement tour for that, but I mean, it didn't hurt it. And then once we get into '95 or so, everything's doing, I mean, late '94, early '95, everything's doing huge. Everything, every show is doing 3,000, 4,000, double what they were normally and stuff. And so Onita's making a lot of money at this point.
Are there any other notes from the Kawasaki show?
So the semi-main event was Matsunaga and Goto. They've been feuding and everything, and so they agreed to team up, and they teamed up to challenge Miss Pogo and Hisagatsu Oya, who were the tag champs at this point. And Oya came in earlier in the years. And he ends up being a prominent guy the rest of the time in FMW. He had started up in New Japan, worked with the SWS promotion, and then after that closed down, he actually went over to the Now promotion. And when the first Now promotion closed down, he ended up getting the gig with FMW as one of the top heels with Pogo and everything. And so he's getting a big push here. And like I said, he's with the FMW promotion the rest of the way, and he's a really solid worker, and he ends up having a lot of great matches as we go farther down the line in FMW.
Now, appearing for the first time on the May tour, it's going to be Taka Michinoku. Who was Taka?
His real name's Takio Yoshida. He started up with Universal Promotion, where that 1990 Lucha Libre promotion and everything in Japan. And so he's working with Sasuke and everything. And then once it closed down and Sasuke had the Michinoku Pro promotion going on, he went along with that. And he's at this point becoming a established name. He worked the J Cup as well and had a pretty good match. And then New Japan actually invited him to work the Best of the Super Juniors tournament in May. So he's working everywhere and establishing his name.
All right, cool. I actually just saw him. He had his 25th anniversary show, and he looks not a day older than what he did in 1997 when I watched him on Raw. Like, he looks amazing. To round out the month, IWA, they debuted on May 21st with a series of shows, including a sellout of Kuroken Hall. There is a rumor that IWA tried to poach Hayabusa. Is this true?
Yeah, Victor Quinones, having worked with the Izaki in FMW at the very, very beginning and whatnot, offered, he saw the J Cup match and everything and saw this guy's going to be a star. And like I said, J Cup really made Hayabusa. And so he saw the potential and everything, and he offered him pretty much a deal where if you leave FMW, we'll make you the top native superstar in the promotion. We'll give you $3,000 a month, and we'll give you a $10,000 signing bonus. So that's pretty much $46,000 a year the first year, and $36,000 after that, and probably make more if promotion does well and he's the top guy and top shows and stuff like that. So I mean, that's a pretty lucrative offer at the time, considering, like we talked about, Hayabusa was making $2 to $3 in Tijuana, and then he's moving up to AAA where he's only working 1 to 2 shows, one show a month pretty much. So it was a pretty good deal at the time. But Hayabusa, and I've talked to Hayabusa about this, he was never going to leave FMW. So many people bring that up to me. Why didn't he go to New Japan? Why didn't he go here? Why didn't he go here? Hayabusa was never going to leave FMW. He had these, he had what a lot of Japanese wrestlers have, where it's like, this company brought me up, they made me, I'm staying loyal to them. And and also with Hayabusa obviously becoming the top guy in FMW eventually, he was never going to leave that position no matter how much he was offered. New Japan could have New Japan, All Japan, he'll work for he would work shows, but he would never leave FMW.
Also on the IWA front, they announced a working agreement with the AAA company. What does this mean for FMW and Hayabusa?
Like I said, it didn't really at this point. It's not really doesn't affect anything because IWA started up in May, and by this point, Hayabusa had gotten an offer with EMLL to work there, and so and that's really kind of when things started to turn around for Hayabusa, was getting into EMLL and whatnot, and starting to work, big shows and everything like that. So it didn't really affect him because he ended up leaving AAA by the time that deal was made with IWA.
Final note from the IWA debut shows: the Tiger Jeet Singh and his son, they actually show up at the first show at Kurokan Hall, also with their friend Ueda, who had been with Pro Wrestling Crusaders. And they run some kind of angle, like what happens with the Singhs at this show?
Yeah. So they pretty much came in, and it made it seem like they were going to work IWA Japan. They had left the Now promotion and everything. And I don't know if they were negotiating to work with the IWA promotion at the time, but it ended up not working, or it ended up falling through, I guess, because they did not work IWA Japan. Tiger Jeet Singh didn't come in until August '95, and Ueda didn't come in until January '96. So, and they both just were pretty much gone for a while. And Tiger Jeet Singh, worked Europe and everything. So, it obviously, I guess it was just one of those things where they were going to work together, and it just fell through.
All right, and finally, the last note for the show is going to be that Dave did his little ping pong report where 1 week he says that Onita and Inoki are having serious talks about having a match before both of them are finished, and then the next week he says, hey, that match is never going to happen, so just don't even bother with it. Why did this match never happen? What are the obvious things?
Yeah. Politics, and it's just simply Onita wanted to work Inoki, and he wanted to beat Inoki. That's the whole reason he'd want to work with him. And Onita's going, let's do 2 matches, New Japan and FMW, I'll put you over one time, and then so Inoki get the first win, and then I'll get the second win, and we both get wins and everything. And Inoki is so high and above, he's like, I'm not going to work with you, and I'm not going to lose to you. So that ended up killing the deal right there. Inoki was not going to lose to Onita. Doesn't matter. He got a tag win over Tenryu. Doesn't matter. You're not going to beat Inoki if Inoki doesn't want to lose to you.
Yeah, of course. Okay, we're going to stop there because this is already an incredibly long show, and we're going to pick up with June at the next show. Before we go, Brett, do you want to talk about any notes going on in the current world?
I guess the main news right now is that Onita announced that he is going to run for mayor of Kanazaki in April. And Kanazaki is in the Saga Prefecture, which is southern Japan, and that's where his mother used to live, and so that's why he chose this area. And so he's gonna get back into politics and try and become mayor of Kanazaki. So that's the main thing. Like you had mentioned in the last episode, there was a report that Onita is stating he was offered a spot at WrestleMania in New Orleans. I would guess if that is true, it would be a Hall of Fame spot, but I don't really know anything else besides that right now. They're kind of close together though, because WrestleMania is April 8th, and then the election April 15th. So it'd be kind of one of those, okay, do this and head right back and start campaigning and stuff. The other thing is Super Battle FMW held their show on December 22nd. It did not do very well as well. I didn't get a full figure. All I was told was that definitely 34 people were there, which that's not promising. And that it was a tag match with the FMW group of Tanaka, Riki Fuji, and Hideki Osaka, defeating the team of Kazushi Miyamoto, Nobuhiro Tsurumaki, who is an original wing wrestler from like the early days. He ended up leaving after the first year, as well as Iori Sugawara, with Tanaka getting the win. So the FMW team won. Miyamoto had started something, calling all the FMW old guys, and you should all go to the retirement home and everything, kind of, establishing himself as this top heel and everything. And none of you are in shape and everything. Well, Tanaka gets the win, the FMW team gets the win, and Miyamoto shakes hands with everyone and apologizes, and it just pretty much ends the angle right there. Ricky Fuji does a promo pretty much going, hey, keep following FMW 2018. We're gonna keep going and everything. And I actually contacted Ricky Fuji after that, going, hey, so is there any plan on FMW running another show? And he wrote back and he goes, I don't know, I haven't heard anything. So as of right now, there's nothing planned for the Super Battle FMW promotion. So not looking good at the moment. There might be, a restart here in a couple months or something like that. But at the moment, there is nothing scheduled.
Wow, it sounds very much like the as we mentioned before, when ECW ran their final show, everyone just they all just kind of shrug and look and say, well, there's no shows booked, so we'll see.
Yeah.
One more note, final one that we never talked about, and I just kind of thought of as we were going through the show. Back in November, at the end of November, DDT and Freedoms and Noah and a few other companies, they did a joint show at the Diffie Ariake Stadium, and it was announced that the IWA was going to relaunch. Do you know anything about that?
It just might be, because IWA kept dying and coming back. Asano kept bringing it back and everything, and they'd run Shinjuku Face every couple months, and they'd have their Kappa, their mass wrestlers, the Kappa, I forget the full name, but it's one of those Japanese creatures, and everything. And so they'd run every couple months and everything up until it was just such not worth it. They're not making money or anything like that. And so Asano again closed the promotion down. And so, you bringing that up, I would imagine that it's just, if they do start back up, that'll be just like it was the last couple of years. I mean, do you even remember, IWA Japan running, in the earlier this decade, 2011, 2012?
No.
Most people don't. So it's just one of those things where, if they do come back, it'll be one of those things where a couple years later, you probably won't remember.
All right, cool. Yeah, the last IWA memory I have was I had a tape from 2001 that had Nakamaki and Pogo destroying two jobbers in a thumbtack match. That was disgusting. That's the last thing I remember of IWA.
They went to 2015, so that just shows you, it kept going. But again, it wasn't the the same promoter, but it wasn't the same IWA Japan most people remember.
All right. Well, with that, we're gonna wrap it up. Brett, if you want to let them know, where can people find you online?
BahuFMW.com. Cover all the results and news and everything like that. I cover Freedoms and Onita news at this point, because Super Battle FMW is inactive at the moment. And then I also have Instagram, Bahu FMW World, and on Twitter, Bahu FMW.
Awesome. And Brett, not to put you on the spot, but people keep asking, where can I see a lot of the current stuff? You have a lot of the DVDs for companies like Freedoms, right?
Yeah, I get them in from Japan and everything, and they're on my website. It's on the DVD library section, and every couple of months I get the Freedoms, the most recent Freedom commercial DVDs sent from the Freedoms company itself.
Yeah, because only maybe half of those wind up in any type of downloadable format. It's really hard to see a lot of those. So if anybody wants to get the Freedoms shows...
Yeah, and most of them are...
Yeah.
Yeah, it's most of them are just from Nico and Samurai, and what I do is I get commercial tapes. So if there's a commercial tape, I would much rather get that than the Nico because the Nico quality sucks.
Yeah.
But I sell them. It's pretty much if you $6 a DVD. So, and I got everything listed, all the match listings and everything on the site.
Awesome. Well, all right. With that, we're going to wrap it up, and we'll be back next week with the second half of 1994. So thanks for listening.